Student, how are you? This is Dr. AJIDANI Moses Sabo. I'll be taking you on ECO225, History and Structure of Nigerian Economy 2. Nigerian economy, as you all know, uh, is made up of several sectors. One of them is the financial sector, and the leading institution in the financial sector is the central bank. Central banking in Nigeria, that's the lecture, the first topic we are going to discuss this morning. Uh, Central bank is established by the federal government to oversee the activities of other financial institutions, including merchant bank, commercial bank, savings bank, and so many other financial institutions. Now, in terms of history, it has passed through about three or more phases. The first phase was a free era during which the legislatures were made so simple that anybody who owns money can establish a bank. The role central bank play a lot of role in the economy. Um, Owing to the rapid structural growth of financial sector through decades, the bank has modified the nature and style of surveillance, of its surveillance. One of the roles of a central bank is mobilization of savings for onward transmission to borrowers. Another function of the central bank is the regulatory role of the central bank. The central bank regulate other financial institutions, as I've said. Um, there are so many instruments that the central bank used to regulate uh, commercial banks and even other financial institutions. One of them is open market operations. In the open market, the government securities are sold and bought, such as bonds, treasury bills, and the idea in the open market is to mop up some liquidity or is to borrow money from the public and use it for developmental purposes. Then rediscount rate, another method of regulating the money supply in the system is the rediscounting rate. This is a central bank uh, direct effort in reducing interest rate. When the central bank rediscount rate, then it gives more money to the financial institutions, or particularly commercial banks, to give loan. And in that case, the loans will be available for borrowers. And if the loans are channeled directly to productive activities, output will increase. But if the central bank raise the rediscounting rate, it means that little will be left to commercial banks to give as loans, and therefore the supply of money will reduce and the inflation will be curtailed. However, but on the other hand, that the output will be reduced. Now, reserve requirements. Central bank law require that the commercial bank to keep some special reserve, and the more the ratio of reserve, the less the commercial bank has to give out as loan, and therefore the supply of money will come down and inflation will be addressed. Special deposits. Sometimes the central bank require commercial banks to give some special deposit to enable it withstand in case of any bankruptcy. And therefore, when the central bank directs commercial bank to give more special deposit, the commercial bank will have less to give as loan. Direct control, credit control. Direct credit control means the central bank will allocate credit to some special sectors or some special areas. Okay, that gives social amount of social percentage of loan to social area. This is a special area of interest to the government. For instance, the government will say give a special loan to agriculture or to industry or to manufacturing or to education and so on and so forth. So if government directs, it's a direction, I mean directive. If government directs that commercial banks will give credit to a particular area or a particular sector, the uh, the credit, the availability of credit to other areas will be reduced, and therefore the overall interest of the commercial banks may be affected. Moral suasion. This is begging. It's a kind of begging the commercial banks to give special uh, attention to some areas. It involves the use of the power of persuasion to influence the lending operations of of the commercial banks in the direction desired by the central bank. So it's a kind of persuasion, you know. Moral suasion means to persuade the commercial bank to give loan to the areas of interest. Now, over time, government has introduced several economic policies in the country, and the recent past, particularly in the 2010s, the government came out with what is called this treasury single account. Treasury single account. What it means is that government try to bring all its revenue to one account from which the government can spend. Okay, the idea is that government has a lot of banks, a lot of accounts in various commercial banks. And so the introduction of treasury single account enable government to bring all the revenue to one uh, account. In terms of history, the introduction of single treasury account, treasury single account in Nigeria dated back to 2012 under President Goodluck Jonathan, but not much was done. The program started with the pilot ministry, department, and agencies of the government, but the program was blown around 2015 with the coming of uh, Buhari. And so there's a legal framework into the uh, back in the there's a legal framework backing the treasury single account. It is backed by law. Okay, you go to Federal Republic of Nigeria Constitution 1999 has amended the law that empower federal government to do this kind of economic policy is there. Now, the objective is to collect and remit all revenue due to the federation account, and the federal government consolidated reform revenue fund to block all leakages in government revenue generation, collection, and remittance. It will facilitate better coordination with monetary policy implementation to ensure a new regime of transparency and accountability, to align with the Central Bank of Nigeria's cashless policy, to minimize transaction costs during budget execution. These are some of the objectives that the government intends to achieve. Benefits of the Treasury Simple Account. Well, several benefits that are likely to be enjoyed. One, it improves appropriate control. It's an important factor in managing and controlling government cash resources. Two, it reduces the debt servicing costs and eradicates financial misappropriation in the public sector. It will facilitate better fiscal and monetary policy coordination, reconciliation of fiscal and banking data, and improves the quality of fiscal information. It improves operational control during budget execution and so many other benefits likely benefits that will be enjoyed with the introduction of Treasury single account. Now, it reduces bank fees and transaction costs. The implementation of TSA in government cycles reduces the aggregate number of bank accounts operated by the MDAs, as ministry, department, and agencies, and in effect leads to cover administration costs for the government for maintaining these accounts. It facilitates efficient payment mechanism and many other benefits. However, there are some emerging issues in the implementation of Treasury single account. Number one, then, is the operational guidelines for the implementation. The implementation of Treasury single account in Nigeria is primarily designed to bring all government funds in bank accounts within the effective control and operational purview imposed by the MDAs. One of them is government agencies are not to operate any bank accounts under any guise outside the purview and oversight of the Treasury. The consolidation of government cash resources should be comprehensive and encompass all government cash resources. Government banking arrangements should be unified to enable the relevant government stakeholders such as ministries of finance and the accountant general of federation have full oversight of government cash flows across the banks. Okay. Then we also have ministry, department, and agencies. The MDAs are the ones that operate these treasury single account. They are to ensure that their revenue targets are met. Okay, the expected roles of MDA is to ensure that their revenue targets are met, provide their dealers with details of payment, including accounts and number of payments, guide payers on e-collection process, including how to pay the banks or through other channels of the CBN payment gateway. Where applicable, ensure that appropriate services are rendered upon confirmation of payment. Undertake regular reconciliation of all collection accounts. So these are the requirements that MDAs are expected to do. Now, the responsibility of deposit money bank. What is the role of commercial banks in the TSA? One is to ensure that their duties under the subsisting payment gateway are sufficiently discharged. Ensure that customers making payment to government are given prompt service. Ensure that all collection in favor of government is promptly remitted. Okay, these are the roles. These are the responsibilities that are required of the deposit money banks, that is the commercial banks in TSA operation. Then the role of the central bank is to provide payment gateway platform, development of overall electronic collection and electronic payment policies for the nation, interfacing with deposit money banks and monitoring them, creation and maintenance of bank accounts, including Federal TSA, Federal Account Allocation Committee, and TSA sub-accounts. The role of Accountant General of the Federation is also clearly stated in the TSA. The role of service providers are also clearly stated, as you can see in the screen. For instance, the role of Office of the Accountant General is to ensure effective implementation of e-collection, development of operation guidelines, proper monitoring of the collection gateway, and so on and so forth. In the case of service providers, they are to work with CBN, Office of the Accountant General of Position, and other stakeholders processing platform to provide a robust, stable, and effective integrated system and platforms. They are also to ensure the optimal availability of all relevant systems and platforms, provide users with a relevant purpose, and training of users the use of payment gateway. TSA control mechanism. Number one, the operation of TSA e-collection initiative is designed to monitor by all relevant agencies, including the OAGF, that is the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, Budget Office of the Federation, and the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. Central Bank is responsible for monitoring it. Central Bank is also responsible for daily transfer of funds from the sub-accounts to the Treasury single account based on instructions from the Accountant General, Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. There are challenges in TSA implementation. Okay. One, the first challenge in implementation is the inability of MDAs to carry out timely reconciliation of accounts. The MDA, the ministry, the department, and agencies find it difficult to reconcile the account on time. And number two, cash book entries in respect of cash payments and receipts are expected to be made, and posting should be balanced each day. Cash balances are to be confirmed on a daily basis, which is also posing a challenge. There is an acute challenge in the preparation of weekly financial statements and rendition of returns and accounts with the implementation of TSA. It is one of the statutory duties of the Central Pay Office um, Treasury Services of the MDAs to prepare weekly financial uh, position of the organization for management's use. Now, furthermore, the sudden takeoff of the TSA operation in line with the presidential directives is another headache to the MDAs, because most of the MDAs are not prepared. Okay, it was sudden, and therefore, in terms of human resources, they don't have enough. The uncooperative attitude of deposit money banks, coupled with their unwillingness to transfer the public funds held in trust for the MDA to the entities open for institution, was a bitter pill. So most of the MDA, most of the commercial banks are not ready. Okay, they are not willing to transfer public money to public accounts, to the treasury single account. The TSA guidelines provide a broad-based framework, and it does not address the operational details and peculiarities of some MDAs. It's also a challenge. The full implementation policy has visited a harsh liquidity crisis in the banking sector, which is the engine room of the economy. Yes, the implementation of TSA has led to a dearth of funds in commercial banks, and non-commercial banks, the engine of development, because it gives out loans to productive activities. Now, and so you will discover that at the end of the day, the treasury single account failed because of these challenges, and again because of the inability of the uh, subs- subsequent governments to maintain it and to develop on it. Now, follow from there, while the bank reforms. The bank reforms was introduced in 2005, and the idea is to recapitalize the system. Like I said earlier, the central banking in Nigeria has passed through three phases. The phase of free banking era, okay, period of control, the period of control between 1980, 1960 to 1980, 84, 85, and then the period of control, deregulation from 1985 to 2004. Now, from 2005, there was a kind of regulation, what we call guided deregulation, when the bank reforms were introduced. And chief among the banking reforms is the bank recapitalization. Bank recapitalization means increasing the capital base of banks. Before January 2005, the recapitalization fund was pegged at about 5 million naira. This was raised to 25 billion. Sorry, earlier it was 5 billion. This was raised to 25 billion in January 2005. And between 2003 and 2004, banks were sorting for capitals by selling their securities in the capital market. And out of 89 banks that were in existence in Nigeria, 25 of them survived the recapitalization policy. Some of them were merged, some were bought over. Starting from January 2005, 25 banks were recapitalized. Bank capitalization is the act of beefing up the long-term capital of a bank to the level at least required by monetary authorities and to ensure the security of shareholders' fund, equity plus reserve. Okay. Now, objectives of bank reforms or bank recapitalization this time around. Number one, to achieve liquidity, that is cash in bank. When we talk about liquidity, we're talking about cash. Before 2005, go to bank, discover that some banks don't have cash at hand. But since 2005, between 2005 and now, almost all the banks are liquid to give confidence to the customers. So anytime you want to transact business in banks now, there's confidence. You can pay, you can withdraw to reduce non-performing loans in banks. Okay? Because when the banks are highly capitalized, the non-performing loans not and it will not be an issue. To enhance bank profitability. Yes, when a bank has capital enough, can give out loan and so make profit. To enable Nigerian banks to be globally competitive. Positive impact of bank recapitalization on bank performance. Number one, the recapitalization has brought about a new mindset to the industry as banks are putting in place best practices in the areas of corporate governance and risk management. Transparency and public disclosure of transactions have remarkably improved. Number of banks have returned to the profit-making path and improved their balance sheet as the recent result of their financial statement have shown. If you visit uh, uh, net and search for financial reports of the 25 banks, you observe that they are making a lot of profit. Nigerian banks are now key players in the global financial market, with many of them falling within Africa and among top 1,000 banks in the world. The reform has culminated in moderating the spread between the lending and deposit rates. Okay, the hitherto volatility in the exchange rate witnessed in the foreign exchange markets has been brought down, and there is great cooperation between the monetary authority and the banks through regular meetings and collaboration on policy issues. These are some of the advantages. Challenges to banking recapitalization. Number one, wrong perception of the intent of the reform. So the public has wrong perception and therefore they are not willing. They are skeptical about the policy. The reluctance of Nigerians to accept positive changes in global dynamics is another challenge. Globally, bank recapitalization, bank reforms are being introduced, but Nigerian public, the kind we are, have failed to accept it. The cost of doing business in Nigeria is still high when compared with developed economies of some emerging and developing countries owing to the poor state of infrastructure. Yes, electricity, our power supply is very, very inadequate and erratic. And all these recapitalization depend to a greater extent on the availability and efficiency of infrastructural facilities. The high growth rates recorded in the last 5 years have not been inclusive, implying that this has not been sustainable development. This situation is responsible for the high unemployment and poverty level, affect the low banking habit in the economy. So, the banking sector occupies a vital position. The modest achievements recorded so far have been largely due to greater cooperation and, the, and the commitment. You know, if you go to banks now, you can withdraw even in the midnight. Okay, you go to ATM. It was as a result of introduction of the Treasury single, banking reforms, recapitalization, that some of these banking facilities, bank products have emerged. Taking for instance the ATM, okay, the e-banking, where you can see that the comfort of your room and transfer and receive payments. So the bank recapitalization that was rejected by the public has now turned to be the best policy that has happened to the Nigerian economy. The next lecture is integrated payroll and personal information system, the controversial IPPIS. The IPPIS was based on ICT and computerized human resources and accounting management information system project initiated by the federal government of Nigeria to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of payroll administration with ministries, departments, and agencies. IPPIS provides a platform for computer application government payroll management as it calculates each employee's monthly basic pay, bonuses, arrears, national housing fund, and pension contributions. IPPIS is an integral part of government integrated financial management information system. Well, it's not a new that it's no longer a new that the IPPIS has already been introduced and it has covered almost all the ministries, departments, and agencies of government, and particularly at the federal level. Okay. Now, one of the biggest problems associated with the manual payroll, as advanced the by the federal government, was that government did not know the size of its workforce. Okay, so the IPPIs will enable government to do that. And then in Nigeria, all the ministry departments just draw their personnel costs from the consolidated revenue. The exact number of personnel being paid in the nation cannot be easily ascertained due to no availability of required and necessary information. And therefore, the IPPIS will enable government to know the number of personnel it is catering for. The pilot phase was implemented, financed by the World Bank, commenced in February 2006 at the Bureau of Public Service Reforms upon the approval of the Federal Executive Council, while the project went live in April 2007 with 7 pilot MDAs. Its management was transferred to the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation in October 2008. Okay. Now, the basic objectives of IPPIS include: 1. Centralized payroll system for all federal government of Nigeria employees. 2. To facilitate easy storage, updating, and retrieval of personnel records for administrative and pension processing. 3. To aid manpower planning and budgeting, to ascertain actual personnel enrollments in federal government employees. The effect to effect prompt deduction and remittance to accounts of all third parties such as National Health Fund, Pay as we earn, etc. However, there are challenges of IPPIS implementation. Okay. Um, some of these challenges were either as a result of the nation's underdevelopment in terms of technological infrastructure and expertise, or simply the unwillingness of the authority to fully carry out the implementation. Some of the challenges include one, lack of sufficient skills transfer to government personnel, which prolong consultants' stay on the project. Poor state of supporting infrastructure such as low internet penetration, technological barrier, problems associated with transfer posting employees from IPPIS MDA to non-IPPIS MDA, and so forth. Likely benefits of IPPIS. Number one, it enables government to know its staff strength. There's no doubt about it. It enables government to fish out ghost workers. Please don't forget this point as we are going to look at this point critically later. And three, effect of IPPIS implementation on the university system. You can see two objectives, okay? To enable government to know the number of staff it is scattered for, okay? It enables government to fish out ghost workers. Ghost workers, please, I want you to hold that point. Now, IPPIs violate the university system, university autonomy, okay? University is a living organism which breathe, grow, move. University move. Okay, university is Mrs. Niger. It move. It is living. It kicks. It shake every day, every hour, every minute. Okay? University and therefore universities operate differently from the civil service and as such cannot be seen as appendage of ministry, departments, and agencies of government. And therefore, the implementation of IPPIs will violate the university autonomy. The university autonomy is that the university councils are the one to manage the system. They are the one that is authorized to appoint vice chancellor, appoint the principal, some other principal professionals like the registrar, the chief librarian, and the bursar. And it is the council that authorize the employment, the council that authorize the payment of school fees, the amount of school fees to pay, and so the council does this on behalf of government anyway. But the implementation of IPPIs will actually violate this autonomy. Okay. Now, why academic and because of that, the academic staff union of universities has rejected the implementation of IPPIs in the university. They because since implementation at various federal MDAs, the system which integrates and harmonizes salary payment has reportedly exposed hundreds of ghost workers. Over 80,000 ghost workers exposed after the system was introduced in Nigeria police force in 2018 is a case in point. Okay, but it was later discovered that even with the implementation of IPPIs, some ghost workers were discovered. Then the question is the previous payment platform and the IPPIS, which one is better? Which one is better? If one of the objectives of government is to fish out ghost workers by introducing the IPPIs, and few months after, it was discovered that a lot of ghost workers were found. So one will ask the question, where are these ghost workers coming from? And how did they go to the platform? Because somebody must must impute your information into the IPPI's platform. The introduction of IPPI is not backed by law. Okay, the union's position is that there are extant legal provisions and negotiated agreements arising from the nature and peculiarities from their universities, which make IPPIs unnecessary and inapplicable to the university system. These are arguments by ASU. There are certain peculiarities which IPPIs does not cater for in the university system. One of these is sabbatical staff, adjunct lecturers, contract staff, and other academic allowances for working in more than one institution. It was also observed that since February 2020, university lecturers' pay slips have reflected new rates of deduction and other deductions that employees did not approve. For instance, it is reflected in the pay slips for university lecturers who enroll in the IPPIs that 5% of individual salary is deducted for maintenance of the payment platform. This, he says, has drastically reduced their take-home payment. Now, the 5% goes to where? That's the question that ASU as a body union has been asking. You enroll in the IPP as your 5% of your salary will just be deducted and sent to Team Air. When ASU was forced to get paid through IPP, salaries were cut because of malicious deductions, most of which were not consented to. A professor who received 460,000 naira through normal payment means hardly get 416, 34,000 less due to these deductions that can't be explained. Okay, outside the university, the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria Industrial Action earlier in November 2022 over disagreements with the federal government on IPPIs. While explaining why lecturers are against IPPIs and some other agencies do not appear to have a problem with it, he adds that salary payment structures differ from one institution to the next. Lecturers, for instance, use the Consolidated University Academic Staff (CONUS), while other non-teaching staff in the tertiary institution fall under Consolidated Tertiary Institution Salary Structure (CONTIS). Under this arrangement, the software used in the government integrated system, which takes into account the automated deduction of check-off dues, deductions of cooperative dues, transfer of union dues, and payments of other approved allowances. Ordinarily, IPPIS does not cater to this, and according to the recent agreement, the government plans to pay these areas. Okay? Now, these are some of the issues surrounding the IPPIs which made ASU to reject the payment platform. Reasons for federal government ASU 2020 face-off on IPPIs. One, stoppage of salaries of university lecturers. Well, in February 2020, university academic staff salaries were stopped. The reason being that the ASU members refused to enroll in the platform, in the IPPIS. And it was a directive from the federal government that everybody must enroll before February, or else salary will stop. So IPPIS has no provision for payment of staff or sabbatical, which is enshrined in the NUC requirement for the operation of the university. Visiting research and exchange professors, scholars, including those on collaborative research, okay, did not recognize the IPPIs had no provision for payment of visiting researchers, staff and adjunct appointment, external examiners for assessment of undergraduate and graduate students, external assessors of academic staff for promotion, university laws enacted by government without input or pressure from university staff. Okay, so these are a serious infringement on the university autonomy, which made ASU to reject that. And then another reason why ASU rejected it was that all over the world, where IPPIs is introduced, university system is exempted. Why is Nigeria case different? And thirdly, some some organizations are not enrolled. They are under government. They are not enrolled. The IPPIS, and therefore the issue is why is government insisting that ASU or university academic staff must enroll? These are issues that we'll be asking, and government could not give answer. Now, we the last topic we want to take today is international trade. Well, international trade is the exchange of goods and services between one country and another, and it exists in three levels. We have what is called bilateral trade. These are trading activities between people and governments of two countries. Bi means two. We also have multilateral trade. That's the trading activities between peoples and governments of three and more countries. While globalization is trading activities between peoples and governments of many countries. One of the basic questions that the theory of international trade has to provide is what determines trade? Why do we trade? That's the question. Why do we trade? Why does country trade with another country? Okay. Although this principle was um, first formulated by Ricardo, the theory of comparative advantage, which was formulated by English stockbrokers named Ricardo. We trade with other countries. One country trade with other countries because of so many reasons. One, to enable countries have goods that are not produced within them. Another reason is to create markets for the domestic commodity outside the border of that particular country. Okay. Reasons for international trade. Differences in factor endowment. You observe that countries differ from one another in terms of factor endowment. When we talk about factor endowment, both human and natural resources. Also, differences in climatic conditions. Yes, some countries are in the cold region, some are in the hot region, some are within the tropics that has both hot and cold region, that have both rainy and dry seasons. Advantages, another reason is differences in the level of technical know-how. Yes, technical know-how differs between countries, particularly those of Europe and America, with those of Africa and Asia, and even Caribbean. By exchanging or obtaining these products, the country can enjoy a wider range of commodities than otherwise. Advantages of international trade. Okay. It enlarges a country's consumption capacities, increase world output, and provide access to scarce resources and global market for products without which Nigeria and other low developed countries would not grow. Trade tends to promote greater international and domestic equality by equalizing factor in prices, raising real income, and so on and so forth. International trade makes possible a higher standard of living because more goods means more consumption and more standard of living. Disadvantages. Uncontrolled international trade may harm countries with infant industry. Okay, so infant industry will die. Newly established industry need protection. So uncontrolled international trade means there is no protection. Therefore, domestic infant industries whose products cannot compete favorably with those for international market will die. If goods are allowed to flow across international boundaries, it implies that every good needed in a country could be imported without restriction. This will eventually drain the country's foreign exchange reserves. Eventually, it will worsen the balance of payment position. It is impossible for a country to attain self-sufficiency if uncontrolled international trade is allowed. International trade will make the weak weaker and the strong seemingly stronger, provided it is not restricted. There are some barriers to international trade. Number one, governments of many countries interfere in the free flow of goods and services across the country's border. For instance, a country can impose import duties, import quotas, tariffs, etc. Differences in currency too is a barrier. Language problem is a barrier. Geographical barriers, okay. The distance is a barrier, and so forth.